Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Obviously, there are a lot of straight-up lunatics on the right who have made their way through the primary season and are going to be in the general. I think the most hilarious one, of course, being Herschel Walker running against Raphael Warnock, because he's running on this whole, family first, that we need parents to be engaged with their kids, and especially fathers. And he's made the statements about the black fatherhood and fatherhood in black communities, and how it's wanting, let's say. And then we find out that in 2 weeks we found out he's had 2 extra secret kids. Okay. A week ago he had a son he never told anybody about. And then 4 days later, we find out he's got a daughter too.
Who told him this was going to be a good idea?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that so far in the chalk up of stuff you've said and stuff that turns out to be true. What he's been saying is magic, top of his class. He's an engaged father. He was a law enforcement officer. There's so much to this that is just hilariously bad, and unfortunately it sits on this kind of soft, what I would call the soft racism of some on the right, which is they've got a black guy in office, we'll run a black guy. The same kind of stuff the same sexism that gave you Sarah Palin effectively.
Yep.
That we'll run a woman, that'll help us. And again, the problem they have is with their own voters. Because on rare occasion, in a distinctly, in an odd district, like they had this temporary election in Texas, where this conservative Latina congresswoman, ran for the office. And she holds it until the special election is going to be held. So I think her term will be 7 months. But she won in the area, and so this is them showing that they're gaining ground with Latinos in general, and that this is going to push them over the top, and that this is something that no other until Trump came along, Latinos didn't like.
Sorry,
Republicans.
In the chat, Carl Walesi just said Herschel Walker is supposed to look good in a miniskirt? ? I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yes, because
thanks, Carl, you really threw a wrench in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't not engage.
Indeed. Well, this is how they operate. This is kind of we tell them what to do anyways. They're a much more hierarchical leadership based party, and they pride themselves on this. This is how they got the Führer King Trump in many ways. They look for someone like that. I think that there is a distinct difference that the Democrats are looking for a good manager, a good, not even a CEO, but a district manager to be president. Mm-hmm. Handle all the stuff, make sure it's sensible. Try to keep the whole thing afloat. Don't go too crazy. We all need to show up at work tomorrow, and I need to know that the building is going to be in the same place.
Yeah, we don't need an entrepreneur.
Right. Well, this idea is that, or a second generation rich kid collapsing his dad's business. And in the case of Trump, there's beyond the father issues that obviously come up in this, and that needed what they view their low rung for alpha male, which is clearly a predicate in all of these. I mean, it's at the fringes of the incel world, all the way up through this kind of there's only one man. I alone can do it. I alone can fix it. That is the pyramid scheme that is the Republican Party currently. And the problem they have is that once that tips, you're done. Unless you have somebody really, equal to, as far as the dynamism and charisma that Trump allegedly has to fill that gap, you end up wandering in the wilderness for a while. Post George W. Bush, you float, McCain was your best shot, but then you float Romney after that. Nobody quite knows where they're going, and they decide to go back to populist, guy you'd grab a woman by her genitalia with kind of energy. A lot of, with the idea of where Cheney was sort of the national security whisperer for George W. Bush, Pence was the evangelical whisperer for Trump, that he straightened him out for that group of people. Nobody in the military side of things thought Trump would be reticent to blow something up or kill somebody. You patch the holes in where you think, Biden was there for Obama as experience. The one concern people had about Obama was that he was so new. Does he have the experience to do this? The problem they had with Trump, obviously, is his absolute lack of moral character and his disgusting personal tastes. And so you throw in this sort of like evangelical Ken doll of Mike Pence to fill that gap, to spackle the holes in this monstrosity, or at least plug the leaks in the raft till it can get across the river. And once it got across the river, you don't need it anymore. And he's basically a prop. And then the scary part is that beyond Dan Quayle, almost solving the youth question with George H.W. Bush and going, we're going to usher in a new, younger age of, Gary Hart looking, by the way, Republican era with this guy who's, arguably at that time dumb as a post, but won't boss the boss around, but might tee up later to be bossed around by whoever we put in place. The same way they shepherded in George H.W. Bush to keep Reagan on the straight and narrow, keep him away from his Hollywood liberal roots, if that was at all possible, which he never had, but that was a concern. That this is a guy who really knows the business, and this guy can be the front man for the whole thing. Then you do the swap with, whoever the VP would have been for Dan Quayle would ultimately be the guy, 8 years after would essentially be Cheney. That was the goal. Like next up, when Dan Quayle decides to run, Cheney's the dude. And they missed. So the next guy up was George W. Bush. And in comes Cheney. And the same thing is true of Pence. So Pence filled this gap for Trump that gave him the illusion of morality and godliness that allowed him to have this. And there's our dear friend Philip Bittner is joining us. He'll be joining us at the top of the hour. Okay. He's going to get in there and get settled. There he is. And Pence was supposed to satisfy these they effectively patched the hole created by the Access Hollywood tape. And he did it effectively. I mean, he really was. He did that job. And then after he did that job, he was completely useless because Trump, in many ways, I think views his circle as in the same way Putin does. There must be a whack-a-mole of nobody gets their head higher than mine. He's still doing it in the Republican Party now. So the idea that he's even the idea of him teeing up a vice president for the next round, he finds personally offensive. Even the kingmaker part means he's no longer king. And that's, you could tell his ego can't handle it. And so hearing his sort of disdain for Mike Pence and the conversation where his own daughter is saying, I heard him call him a wimp. His daughter's assistant heard Trump call him the P word, which he also used in the Access Hollywood tape. And childish things like, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. I can clearly see I made a mistake. All those things that he said about Mike Pence, without recognizing that without Mike Pence, he'd have lost. He really would have. He would not have had that evangelical support in the numbers he would have needed. It would have that 75,000 vote difference that gave him the Electoral College would have gone the other direction. So Trump, in many ways, owes his presidency to the existence of Mike Pence. And then to end it, to bookend it with literally cheering on the idea that they might kill him. That maybe they've got, the quote is, maybe they've got the right idea about hang Mike Pence. And the idea that, like, I mean, yeah, he was joking. In that situation, I'm sorry, you're not joking. When you're watching footage of people storming the Capitol in a way that no one has done in decades, if not over a century, you're not joking. He's not. And if he is, he's so detached from reality, which, as Barr said, that he shouldn't be allowed to drive a golf cart, much less run the country again. And this most recent speech and the deposition he's going to have to give on the 17th, which will be in and of itself a beautiful news story, which will, make him wake up sweaty and go to sleep grinding his teeth. That story alone is trouble beyond the January 6th committee. And the January 6th committee is basically what you're seeing as a death by 1,000 cuts of the Trump myth. Of this idea that he was in control, that he knows what he's doing, that he's capable, that I alone can fix it. He never did. And even in this situation where he had everything going his direction in terms of this insurrection, he screwed it up. He's a loser. That's what he does. Every time you pass him the ball, he's gonna, if he doesn't put it in the other team, in his own net, he's going to throw it to a member of the other team or out of bounds. That's all he does. And it's what he did, teeing up Russia for this invasion of Ukraine. It's what he did teeing up arguably China to take Taiwan. It's what he did teeing up North Korea to have more nuclear missiles. It's what he did teeing up Iran to have nuclear missiles, simply because, the evangelical backstory about Israel is a frightening notion. But basically, during his presidency, he was just, autocrats and dictators were getting those little steps forward.
Yeah.
He's always going to chuff about doing a slam dunk in his own net, essentially, in his in giving in the other team's net in the baseball.
Missing news?
Nope. Yeah, we got to go. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. I went way over the break. We got to go. We'll be back right after this with Philip Ittner.